49, 48.
Should start right early. How about those Chiefs, huh?
What's up with Sunday night after Sunday?
I know.
Sunday, the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Who's in it?
She got
Yeah.
49er team, you know, we don't care about the team. Chiefs are in there.
I don't follow football at all. I wasn't sure.
Oh, go ahead and call the meeting to order. Has everybody had an opportunity to read the minutes from the previous meeting? So, do I have a motion to approve, or?
So moved.
Moved by Gail. Second. Second by Derek. All in favor? Consent agenda. Permission for clerk to pay the following dues: Kansas Municipal Utilities dues of $2,659, City Attorneys Association of Kansas of $35, and Northwest Kansas Planning and Development Commission of $3,216.
So moved.
Moved by Larry.
Second.
Second by Gail. All in favor? Police report, did Cody do anything, or?
No, I haven't heard.
Nathan, you're
Hello.
up. I know, look, moving right along.
My name is Nathan Fiala. I'm sure most of you know me or know who I am if you don't know me, but I'm the library director currently. What I've just got there is a handout that's got kind of our activities report, which is kind of an overview of the year. The first thing I want to do is point out that our roof was replaced this fall, and we want to thank you all for that. We do have some other ongoing things, but we know it's an ongoing process, and you know, it happens when it happens. What I kind of put on here was I kind of, for the most part, mimicked what I had seen from previous years on this report. Functional level of funding. On this activities page here, you're going to see that our total city disbursement was $39,057.87. That's, you know, the majority of kind of our funding. That's kind of a big part of it. We've also got some grants on there that total just a little, well, $7,000 or $7,939.86. We've also got donations and memorials there at the bottom that total $1,000. But anyway, I think the functional level of funding, I think we have met that. Expanding library programming, including new programs. Excuse me. So we've got we've had a Lego grant, so we've got a Lego program that we're going to be bringing back. We've kind of suspended it there for a little bit just because of around Christmas you kind of get a lot of you just don't get as many people kind of coming in there. But we're going to be starting that up again. We had a we've got a movie grant on there that we've got movies. Sometimes we have people come in for those. We had a healthy habits story time earlier in the year that a lot of our story times basically preschool age. We've got one now that we're doing that is the Fun on the Farm program with Penny Ginger through Farm Bureau, and that's through a grant through them. So that's a little bit of our programming. It says extended library hours there. Our hours have remained the same since I've been there. We're basically open 10:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. most weekdays, and then on Wednesday we're also open until 7. Variety of books in all new formats. We're buying new books, and at that point I would also point out we did get a grant from the Cheyenne County, Kansas Community Foundation for large print books, which helps out with that as well. And then we try to be a source of pride and community connection. Like I said, we do try to focus on preschool programs the most, but I am kind of looking at what I want to do at a point is kind of have more of an internet class, maybe for older adults that might be kind of focused on that sort of thing too. Kind of there's an outreach there as well.
Good idea.
You know, I kind of thought about it this time, but with this time of year, it was kind of suggested to me maybe we might want to try to do that kind of maybe more towards June, maybe towards spring, just because of sometimes the weather, you can never tell for sure. But I guess that's kind of what I've got for a report. I guess if there's any specific questions or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer those.
Is there anything we need to do with the library? Or?
Actually, we talked about some cosmetic things. There was some fascia on it that was put on a little less than adequately, and then there is some of that decorative stuff up there. I was going to get a hold of Scott and see if we can get back to what we had discussed on it. It had been quite some time, so I'm going to contact him and see if he has that stuff. I think I might have it written down too, but it is the city's responsibility to maintain the building, city building, of course. And we did do a bunch of re-landscaping and removing of overgrowth and stuff at it. So it's just an ongoing maintenance and or improvements location for us. So.
Is there anything that you know that needs to be done there, or fixes? Or?
It's well, I have. I know at one point had a list, and I think we got that to Lila. I guess maybe. Things that are just a little concerning is at one point it kind of looks like somebody went around to all the screens around the outside and basically put a little slit, and right where you know, they were looking to see if the window was unlocked to get in. You know, that's one of those things too where you kind of just like, well, it is what it is. I usually check those windows, you know, periodically just to make sure they're still locked. One that I've gotten kind of notes about is the flagpole that we've got there, the rope. We could, at one point basically it was tied. It's kind of gotten to the point where I don't know if I could get it kind of tied that correctly. So we may need a new rope, kind of if somebody in a city bucket or whatever got up there. That was just, that's probably the one that I can think of the most, that I've heard about the most.
Did you say just the rope is broke?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at this point, I think basically it's from that, whatever you would call that, kind of where the rope would go through at the top of it. I think it's come out up there.
And the screens, have you ascertained if that was completely just vandalism, or was there nefarious intentions there?
I would assume there was nefarious intention. I mean, if you were to look at it, basically it's. I wish I would have brought pictures of it, because I do have pictures of it. But on those screens, right where you would see past the screen on the inside, where there's this little kind of, you know, pull-out mechanism. Yeah, I would say it was somebody was trying to test to get in.
And Nathan, this list, I'm going to say I don't recall getting that. If you could please send it to me again, that would be great.
Okay, yeah.
And going forward, whatever the maintenance may be, you're welcome to contact me directly. We can just get, you know, if it's something we can just get taken care of, we will.
Okay.
We'll get with you on these other improvements that we knew we was going to do, and then see if there's anything.
Yeah, I'd known about the fascia, but see, I know that was before my time, and I barely even know how to say that word correctly, so I didn't. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, well, you know, it'll you know, it's an ongoing process.
Sure. Yep. And we'll get the flagpole real fixed.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Yep. Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. What emergency plan review? Why are you looking at me again, Michael?
So after I sent this out, Amanda called me, and there were a lot of updates that needed to be done in the contact information. We started out by noticing that JR had a home phone number on there, and he hasn't had a home phone for many, many years. So I went through every contact. I went through every contact and confirmed all the phone numbers. Called the local plumbers and electricians to confirm that they, were okay with being on the list and that their contact information was correct. Confirmed all of the KDHE numbers. Over here on the back, well, I kind of skipped over the front pages, but on page number 6, we had cable television company, but Eagle Communications is more of an internet provider. I thought that would be more appropriate to label it as such, but we can leave it as cable television company if that's what you want. What do you think, JR?
I mean, it's not, I don't.
Do they even do cable TV?
Huh?
Do they?
Oh,
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, they took over for Classic.
Oh.
And then they started doing the internet overbuild. So yeah, they do
So put both.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And then I added the EPA Region 7 on there. That information wasn't on there, but if you read the document, it makes references to contacting them. So I went ahead and got their information and added it on the contact list. Sorry, but I'm going back to the front. The highlighted italic areas there on the first page, those were suggestions from Ryan Murray that he thought we might want to consider adding to the document. So I'll you guys read that and see what you think. Although JR pointed out on number 4 that Goodland, it can still be routed through Goodland, so perhaps we should leave that statement in there and maybe just add something about the local emergency personnel as well, in addition to routing through Goodland.
This water emergency plan started with FEMA. They came out with a thing that required you have an emergency plan in place. They give you all these steps of things like this that you have to do, including like the floodplain, in order to get to the funding. You have to do this, not to mention it's a good idea, but they're all designed around command posts and chain of command things that make it make sense when you have a disaster. And of course, water supply, we lose that. It's a pretty significant thing.
So what I need would be a motion to approve it as amended, and then I'll make the changes and send it out to everybody.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by David to approve the water emergency plan.
As amended.
Okay.
As amended.
Sorry, as amended. Seconded by Vera. All in favor?
Okay.
Peddler's license.
Yep, we have 2 troops that would like to sell cookies. They're going to start on February 13th and run through March 22nd. Generally, the council approves their peddler's license and waives the peddler's license fees. So that's what they're asking.
I'm going to approve the license and waive the fees.
Second.
Moved by Larry, second by Cale. All in favor? Trash waiver for Cynthia Sherwood.
Okay. This is a new trash waiver she's requesting for the property at 109 West Jackson. She says, we would like to have the trash fee taken off. There has not been a trash can there for years. That building is used only for storage. We do everything out at the shop that we have a mile out of town. I'm not familiar with the property, 109 West Jackson.
Behind the
Behind the
library.
library.
Yeah, behind the library, that Quonset.
Mm. So they,
When Gilbert has all this.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to waive.
Motion by Cale. Second. Second by Dara. All in favor?
Okay.
KDA Board of Directors.
So we have a board of, there's a board of directors, KMEA, and we have 3 people that are designated to be our representatives. We have 2 directors and an alternate. Scott Schultz is Director 1. His term expires in 2021. Kale is the alternate. His expires in 2021. JR's is Director number 2, and his expires in April of this year. So we just need to either reappoint him as Director 2 or choose another representative. There are specific things that they have to do. They like them to attend the board of directors meetings. They're typically held in the spring and fall. JR would have to talk more about that because I don't really know.
Well, it's the agency we just went through with that whole contract where we ended up going with Sunflower. However, they do represent us on legal matters that involve municipal power supplies within the state of Kansas. They do supply quite a bit of services to us, even though we don't buy our power through them. We do get the Western Area Power Administration power through them still, which is about, I think it's under 12% of our power supply at this point, but it's very significant because it's very cheap. We used to get a lot more of a percentage through them. As far as going to the meetings and stuff, I'm the only one that I know of that's ever gone to them, so I need to remain that number 2 to do that. And a lot of their voting is just mail order stuff, but they do have a conference every year as well. So, any questions? Okay.
So we need a motion to appoint him as the Director 2.
I make a motion.
Motion by David, second by Larry. All in favor? Projects pending.
Layla, let's add those library improvements to it. I forgot all about that until he was in here. We had gotten to a certain point and then
Okay.
in reference to the Empire Motel property, I know we've had quite a few discussions in trying to get it to move forward, how to promote the ground, get potential people interested in doing that. I was talking to Eddie Schultz, who's had a lot to do with trying to promote that or find ways to do something with that. And in our discussion, it kind of came up, maybe we should try to formulate some kind of a plan. All these franchises, they want you to take a whole bunch of money from you before they'll do the traffic counts and try to figure out what size might work. So I reached out to Miller & Associates, which we use quite a bit on all of our water, sewer, structural information, and they do actually have some resources for that. In talking to Eddie about what we would hope to gain out of this would, of course, just be costs and how, size, essentially what would be appropriate for the community to be able to give that information to a potential investor to build the thing. Because right now it's, until you pay money up front, you can't hardly get that information. So in talking to Eddie, if we was to, after talking to Miller & Associates, he thought the local foundation would, without a doubt, be interested in paying for those engineering services to collect that data and get as much information as we can, so we have something to put forward other than a piece of property in a community in need. So I guess I'm more just reporting. It is, it's city property, of course, so there'd be money spent on it, but I think we would be able to get that from the local foundation, and I don't have a number for that.
Oh, okay.
No, this conversation
We meet
happened
Wednesday, so
Friday.
that's why I
Yeah,
say.
and Eddie's going to come with what information we have, and that's nothing more than that we're going to try to acquire the information, and hopefully, as soon as I get a number, I'll provide that to Eddie for you. KDOT access, road and crossovers, I might as well talk about that one. Had a call from Gerald DeBoer to bring everybody up to speed. He came to us, actually Amanda and I was at the courthouse, and the state more or less sent him our way to talk to us about the crossovers and the frontage road, which has been the ongoing issue forever. Gerald went and talked to the state before he came and talked to us, so I'm not quite sure whether he's a mediator, whether he's originally I'd asked for cost of services to design, because that's what he proposed to do, was be hired by the city to propose a design that then could be applied to the state for funding. In talking to him, he thought it would be about $1,000 to draw this thing up, get it in by March 9, and get it funded. And there's this, it's almost like he's representing the state. And I don't want to speak badly of it, because I think we are moving on the negotiation. But I think I'd actually like to call Miller and Associates and get an opinion on their actual proposal. Currently, what Gerald thinks the state would take as an application is the money that the city is supposed to be paid to maintain Highway 36 through town, which we do not do, therefore we are not paid for it, the state maintains that. However, if we put that money up front as the city's part and propose that this is the part they want to do, change the highway to 3 lanes and move the north curb south to make it the appropriate width. That's really all they want to do. But if we was to put that as part of the proposal, then bringing the crossovers and all of the frontage road up to a given standard one time, and then it would become the city's property. The issue with this, if you followed along at all, or we need to get you up to speed, is that they own the property. They're trying to give us property that we can't afford to maintain. It might sound like a good idea right now, but 20 years from now, it's still a burden that I don't think the city should bear. It's all their property. There's nothing like it anywhere else in the state, and they're just trying to get rid of it. They keep trying to rush us to get this thing off the list, and it's very expensive. I mean, this is in the millions of dollars. The city's just got to be very careful about moving forward. Just because we've finally moved away from just that's your problem, I don't think we should be rushing to that application and to that signature thing. So I guess what I'd like to do as a next step is utilize Miller and Associates just to make sure the city's best interest is being looked out for, put a cost to that, maintenance of the crossovers and the road, because if we can't start saving money now to maintain it, then we can't accept it. It seems pretty simple. It has moved a long ways from where it was, but I don't think we should be rushing to meet the March 9 deadline. I think there's more work to be done on it. So, with your blessing, I'd like to talk to Miller and Associates, pay them some fees just to make sure we have a handle on it for the city's responsibility to that.
That'd be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
The project's pending, that's all on that, unless there's any questions about it. I think that pretty much summarizes it. There have been letters written too, sorry. You'll want to see from Mike, from his office.
As he's going over the files, I think pursuant to our meeting, the files that are going to be coming here and the files that will be transferred to my office. And I would anticipate that happening soon. If I haven't heard from him by the time we meet next, I will follow up with him.
So just so you know the theme of this thing so far, the council had Mike send several letters. We didn't get anything out of that. What we got was movement out of Scott and Amanda persisting at these meetings and going to them. What we got from there was basically letters stating, no, that is the way it is, this is the way we deal with it. But it's a unique situation, so although the letters are important for the paper trail, that's not how we've gotten to this point. So just so we know where we're at.
Okay.
Sorry, Larry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. The old pool property, I had Kirby ask the rec commission, and I wasn't able to get to that meeting, but I think they're on board as far as if we decide to convert that into some kind of a park or move sand volleyball or whatever, I think we could probably get some grant funding to help out with that. Carol Sloper had told me in the past that we just have to come up with a plan and kind of what we want to do, if that's the intent, the direction we think we want to go. Our thoughts were to possibly put a little walking path in there, put horseshoes in there, move the sand volleyball over there. To dirt, fill it in. Yeah.
Not utilizing anything.
Well, we try to utilize the fence once we got, maybe, if it's possible.
Hopefully not. I think it's built in.
Oh, you think it is?
Yeah.
You can fix that.
That's probably far more complicated to try to maintain it than what it's worth to look at.
Okay. Well, we basically looked at, what are we going to do with it? And I guess the latest discussions we've had is we're probably just going to fill it in. Nobody's really interested in the property. We'd like to tie it together with the Scout Hut and make it a small park, or just something to. But I don't think the city should come up with the money to do it necessarily, and I don't think the rec commission should come up with it. But I think we can get some help in some different areas. So I just had you propose that tonight, and everybody seemed to be on board with it. So we'll do some more research and see if we can come up with some ideas on what we could do to it once it was back to ground level and filled in and so forth. Have you heard any more on what we need to do to get rid of that pump house? We just have to gut it and take it back to the ground. Brock doesn't want anything out of it. All right. That's all I got on that.
Are you still keeping the bathhouse up?
Well, that's one of the things that has been discussed. We could go either way on it. I mean, it's kind of a... The biggest problem down there is, even though you're close to the power plant, it's kind of out of everybody's eyes. And it'd be hard to not have it vandalized, I guess, is the best way to approach it. We only opened it during the summer. I suppose if... I don't know what it would take for upkeep.
It's all external plumbing, but it's all pretty old.
Would it be much different than this side?
Like a
It's probably
park bathroom?
older,
What's that?
older than what it said.
Get some motion
Oh, yeah.
sensors and
50.
some cameras and you can see who's in and out of there, you know. Damage done, we'd have a good idea who's there.
Did that stop up there,
What's that?
the vandalism?
No.
Nope. Oh.
We haven't had any since the last meeting.
Okay.
Since the last meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
there for a
2
while,
weeks
it's
ago, yeah.
how many times per week, but.
Okay.
I think there's some potential down there, but we just need to make sure that we do it right so that everybody knows it's a community project and grant funded, that kind of thing. We'd have to have the city probably help fill it in probably. Is that something the city could do? Or would it
Bigger
need...
equipment, or probably county, we'd
County or-
probably want to check with them on
Okay.
at least the
Well,
equipment size.
I could talk to Dave or something.
And let's talk to Dave, because it could be a situation of utilizing the larger equipment.
Okay.
You might need to.
I'll keep digging on it.
The tablets thing, you guys all have a little handout
You said you emailed that?
Just to me.
to Lila, and she printed it out for everybody. But anyway, that's one of them I found. I found another one's a little cheaper. I'm not sure the difference yet, but I think those would work pretty well. And I think we could just use Google Drive, and we each have our own folder, and then Lila could upload all these documents that we print every single time. And we wouldn't have to worry about papers, and we could probably take notes on well, it's got a keypad, so, or it's a keyboard. So we could type notes into our files and at least keep it all backed up as well, so.
It does have a keyboard?
Yeah. Yeah, the picture doesn't really show it, but it's just flipped over so you can use it as a touchpad. But yeah.
And Kale, would you be able to help me with I've done a little bit with the Google Docs and Google Drive, but not a lot. Have you done quite a bit with
Yeah,
that?
I use it for everything we have down there, and I talked to Randy too about it, and he thought that'd be a good idea. Randy Wick.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the life on these, we won't use it that much. but,
Yeah, exactly, so.
you know. And if somebody else comes on board, you wipe them out. but-
Well, if you need anything personal, it's all gonna be on the drive, so, this is basically access to all the documents for everybody, so.
You can cut it or...
Yeah,
Or your
if you
drive
save anything
that-
personal, you could just factory reset the thing, just like you would in your PC.
School uses Google Docs a lot.
Yeah,
That's where I first got familiar with it.
yeah. It's
From
pretty handy.
Rob Schultz, and we did a lot of things between the rec commission and the school that way.
It's easy to use.
Well, it's like you put a document in, and you could share it to all of us.
Yeah.
And give us, if you had a document where you needed input, you could give us each permission to make comments, or there's a lot of different things you can do with it. And I'm not the one up to speed on it, but there's a lot you can do with it.
We probably would have to be very careful about that particular function doing anything prior to a meeting,
Sure.
because that would be a meeting if we're all sharing a
That's true.
document and
That's
making
true.
changes and seeing other people's changes, but I will look into that. But being able to share the documents, that's the big thing, so that we don't have, you're right, having all this paper
Yeah.
here, all these things that I've printed out, and you could have them on the Friday before the meeting and have opportunity on the weekend to look at everything. We could even put building permits, if JR got them to me in time. We could even put them on there for review.
Yeah. Even this water thing.
Yep,
We put out all this.
I know.
So, yeah. I'll look a little longer, but is there a budget we have? I mean, how many would we need, you think?
Well, I think I would definitely want one, all
Yeah.
council members.
I would think so, just so
Yeah.
have the same
Yeah.
information. I think anybody that's within this
6,
group should
7.
probably.
Would you want one, or do you would probably benefit from one, or do you have something like that?
A Samsung Android?
I have no idea. It's LG. This
Okay,
is
so
LG. This is
it's
my. This
Android,
is actually
so-
my firm's tablet that I just downloaded on here, and it's having. It's kind of on the fritz. It wouldn't connect to the internet at my office, and it was connected here, and I downloaded the agenda, and then it got off.
I would think millions.
So, yeah.
I would
maybe-
think.
Yeah.
So that's less than
Do we have-
$3,000.
Oh, yeah. Do we have a,
Well, it would come out of
budget?
equipment reserve, yes. I would say yes. We should definitely do this.
okay. So I'll look a couple more, I'll look at a few more. If you guys see anything out there, just, I guess, share it with all of us.
That one is free.
Free?
Mm.
Yeah, that
I'll
one's.
donate it to an organization.
Here it is.
That's what we're currently using.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I got.
Anything else on project spending?
That special project fund, that is going to come off of there because that is that infrastructure improvement fund that I will need Lauren to create a ordinance so that we can get that created for the sales tax. So that's really all that is. So I feel like we can just mark that off because that's going to happen, has to happen for the sales tax.
What about the liability insurance thing? Do we need to do anything with that, or
We need to talk about that at some point.
summer's coming and the events are coming and?
Oh, I don't think that's what that one was. That was additional
Policy.
insured for, well, yeah, that was part of it.
That's for events.
And then also for hiring people to do work and stuff.
Yeah.
Let me get, it's been so long since we've talked about that. Let me gather up the information that we had previously talked
Yeah,
about.
do it next week, or next meeting?
Yeah. I will make a note to myself. And probably along with that, Cale, is we've got to come up with a better process for our special events because it's kind of haphazard as it is. You know, it's kind of who's responsible for it,
Yeah.
who's responsible for the liability insurance, all of that. It's been, we just kind of flew by the seat of our pants, but now it's becoming such a regular thing, we probably ought to have something
Right. And
formal.
the state documentation is changing, it seems like every year, and there's documents you guys wanted the state doesn't even use. That was last year. So, I
It
guess.
should be the event organizer that should be doing all of that, rather than
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So do you know off the top of your head, like, when the car show does something, do they have their own liability insurance?
They're supposed to, yes. And that's what we're talking about. When there's a special event, the special event organizer should be the one to take care of all that, the liability insurance, taking care of the vendors that are at the special event. If the vendor needs to get licensing, that's all under the special event organizer. That's how most communities do it. We've kind of been not doing it that way. We kind of, like with Cale, the council's been in charge of letting him get his special event permit and all of that, and it hasn't been the event organizer, and he's had to get the liability
And
insurance.
that hasn't always been fairly killed either.
Exactly.
Right.
So it really, really and I can gather all this up, it really should be, like I said, the event organizer that's responsible for all that. And then he can charge his vendors
Right.
a portion of whatever that cost is for that liability insurance, depending on who the vendors are that he has. And then that person can have multiple. You
Right.
and some other vendor, beer vendor or whatever, but then we're not involved in those decisions, it's the organizer.
So like the alumni or anything?
Yes.
Yeah, the alumni would take care of the
Take care of all
insurance.
that.
Yep.
Get
And that
everybody's
makes,
information, get everybody covered.
Yeah.
that's what makes sense.
Yeah, it makes way
So if you
more
want me to
sense.
pursue that, I mean, I've got some documents that I've gotten from other communities in the past when I kind of talked about this, that I can get to Lauren for her to look at.
Well, our next event coming up is probably what, the car show in
Mhm.
May. So we got a couple months to
That'll be here before we know it.
figure
You've
it
got
out.
car show, you've got alumni,
Yeah.
you've got motorcycle rally, depending on what they decide to do. We're looking at a possibility of trying to do concert in the park for Thresher Show weekend. And I know you and I have had some discussions on this too, as to how to handle the liability insurance.
Mhm.
Does it make a difference whether or not, and I'm just asking, whether there's a beer garden or not?
Mhm. Not for us. I mean, if we do it this way, it's up to the event organizer then, because I believe liability insurance, just general liability insurance, is different from this,
Yeah,
right?
the liquor liability is different.
But, right, and I understand that. I guess what I'm driving at is there, and maybe JR can answer this, is there umbrella coverage for an event in the city?
The city has its immunity, but I don't know, I think that's been leaned on in some of these cases, is what it really comes down to. I don't know how it's done other places, but that has been, in the past, how it's been done as far as the car show, because they have not ever had anything as far as their liability insurance, so it is simply the city assuming, I don't know if it's assuming, but the responsibility is at that public area, so if something happens, the city's immune from it.
Right.
I think that was it. The key that we've always gone on is if there were alcoholic beverages served, then we required the liability insurance, and then otherwise we didn't. Does that sound?
I think
Yeah.
that's correct,
Yeah.
yes, which also requires that the beer license requires the council's approval
Yes.
to even get to that stage. But,
Right.
yeah, I think that has been the threshold in the past.
Maybe you and I are bump heads a little bit on this issue.
Yeah.
We're looking at a couple different events. And I understand where you're going with this. We just got to come up with a proper approach to let everybody know.
I mean, we could continue that way if
I
it.
don't know that it's improper. I mean, as long as you don't get into the, I think it's what's been considered is that with alcohol comes a risk. So there has to be
Additional
a responsibility that is actually moved from the city in that instance.
Okay.
Or should be.
And
I don't think, depending on the scale of the issue, that the city's community isn't an appropriate, that's not an appropriate use of it. That's something we could probably check with the league on. The League of Kansas Municipalities and just find out how others deal with it. Because there has to be a level of exposure that is a breakover where you shouldn't be relying on the city's immunity.
so you've always had to get coverage for selling alcohol.
Yes.
That's what the liability coverage is for.
Yeah, so whenever I would get the policy, it was to cover the alcohol sales and then the rest of the event, and then I would list, the requirement is to list the city as an additional insured, and then I would list every vendor also. Every vendor would also be covered along with myself, and then I would pay for it. And then, like for the rally, we split it, but then I got canceled the last minute, like a day prior, because on the museum's website, they said there was going to be a burnout. And the organizers, or the insurance company saw that, and they canceled me, so I had to scramble to find somebody in Colorado to cover it, and got it done, but still.
Haven't we always split with you on alumni?
Yeah, alumni's always split it, like, yeah, something like that, yeah. It's all been split, and the other vendors would pitch in as well. But, what we would say. As far as the organizer getting it, it does make a lot more sense because, like the car show, you're doing burnouts, or like the motorcycle museum, having burnouts. If someone loses control and flies into a crowd,
But that shouldn't be your responsibility to cover
that
that.
shouldn't be mine. That has nothing to do with alcohol. We're the city,
Right.
as far as that goes. That should be the organizer, allowing that type of stuff to happen, which happens at every type of rally like that. It's fine, but still, it should be covered somehow.
Well, we're gonna have to look at, I know like for alumni, we're gonna have to look at, and I don't know what they've decided for sure as far as if they're gonna do a beer garden this year or what. They're going a whole different direction this year. They're gonna do the meal at the high school, I think,
Yeah.
unless something changed. I missed the meeting. I need to find that out. But if I understand what you're saying is you're talking about actually having an event coordinator from whatever group puts on an event in the city. Okay. And providing liability insurance if there's alcohol involved.
Or risk, like the burnout. I mean, that would be considered, I think, a risk that the city wouldn't want to be responsible for.
Okay.
When it's simply a gathering event, I think it's within, and again, I want to ask that question of the league. That's our place for that information.
Okay.
I think if alcohol's a risk, burnout's a risk. Anything you do that a race or whatever the case may be is going to be the difference of whether the city could be utilized.
So when
That's my
somebody
guess.
comes and speaks for the park, is there something we want to hand them or give them? If they're
Well, that's just it. If it's a public event, but there's no alcohol, like he's
Non-alcohol,
saying, and there's no
non-risk, I think that's,
bouncy houses.
something happens
Yeah.
at one of those that's not a sanctioned thing, somebody does a burnout, hurts somebody, that's not an issue. But when it's promoted, alcohol or something that has some form of risk, I think that's what you're going to do.
But they need to know that,
Hmm.
you know.
Sure.
I guess in the
Mhm.
written-
Is there an indemnification and hold harmless provision in any application for the use of city property or facility?
Not
And
as
it
far as I know.
has to do with that public gathering thing. I mean, and that's always been the threshold, and that's the one thing I want to check with the league. And of course, I'll let you know, or are you familiar with the League of Kansas Municipalities? It's the, I don't know if you are or not. I'm asking the question, I guess.
It's been touched on in my conversations with
Okay.
Mike, but I'm not
Okay.
overly familiar with it. It's one of the things that I'm
Sure.
we're going to be working to bring myself up to speed
Yes,
on.
and you'll want to go to one of those conferences, but
Mhm.
basically whenever, for any municipal thing, they're a good resource for the legal department, I guess you'd say, like the codes and all that stuff. A lot of that is referenced out of cookie cutter stuff that is basically accepted in the state of Kansas, and by your city appropriateness, that's how you do your codes, I mean, or by how far you go with it. So they're the perfect place to ask this question as far as the immunity and what level of risk is acceptable, I guess. And of course, final decision is here, if you don't want any risk on the city, but that immunity carries a lot of clout, I guess, for general public gatherings. You know, for whether it be organized or non-organized, the city's immune from what happens there. If somebody does something with negligence, they personally are responsible. The city can't be touched.
Unless there's a risk factor involved.
Unless they've sanctioned it. You know, again, somebody does something, they're personally liable for their actions. The city cannot be, you can't say this person did this risky thing on city property, the city didn't know anything about it, but we're going after the city. They can't do that.
Right.
I understand that.
But my question is, as far as if there's not a level of risk, but it's still a appropriate city sanctioned, it's still a city sanctioned gathering, even if there is no alcohol, there are no burnouts, there's nothing of that nature. And I guess when you're checking on how far the immunity goes, something that may be prudent to ask is whether or not an indemnification and hold harmless clause on the application or the permit for that event would be worthwhile. essentially stating, even though there is no inherent risk because this is a city-sanctioned event, the event organizer agrees to hold harmless and indemnify the city of St. Francis from any and all damages which may occur at or arising out of this event.
And that's why because of the city's immunity, just by the fact that it's an organized governing body and it's on their property, they're already immune from that, is my understanding of why it works that way, why you don't need to have the hold harmless because you already are, because you're immune from being sued for, any
Even though the
activity
city
that
council
takes place
approved
there.
them to have it.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, we can get clarification on that. It's better to be clear on it than do
Right.
it the way we've always done it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, and that's just why I bring it up. If you're going to be
Protect us,
contacting
too.
them, then perhaps inquiring whether or not a city-sanctioned non-risk event, I guess I should say, if the
Should have a
indemnity
hold
stretches,
harmless.
well, I mean, just if the city's indemnity stretches that far.
Sure. Yes. And my understanding is it does, but I'd like to be clarified
Yeah.
on that because that's the way we've always done it.
Okay.
Anything else?
And that, well, I was just going to mention, along with that liability insurance, additional insured, also an additional part of that conversation had to do with hiring contractors and for large-scale jobs, and whether, because when Scott had the flooring job, we required him to have the additional insured. And there was conversation about that, if we should require contractors to also carry that additional insurance if they're going to be working on city property. That was part of that conversation as well. That's been a while back.
Property cleanup.
I have not followed through with putting any more on the list, kind of letting you get up to speed with Mike. We'll get to this. There hasn't been any further movement on the Toller property. There's no problems. There's been progress. So the one we do have action on is moving.
Okay. Street projects.
I just put that back on there. Wasn't sure if you wanted it back on the agenda at this point or not.
Well, you mentioned earlier about the grant,
Yeah.
so we can discuss it now.
We can, they don't want anything put into the papers, and I've already talked to her about that, because the Department of Commerce wants to make their own announcement and send out a press release. But we can tell people, in informal casual conversation, we can talk about it in here, that we did get the grant, and I will be going to a meeting on February 5th, a week from Wednesday. There's a workshop in Hayes, and a city representative must go in order to get the contracts, pick up the contracts, and learn about what the next steps are with the grant. So it makes sense for me to go as the clerk to that workshop. If anybody would like to go along with me, you're welcome to. It's early in the morning. It starts at 8:30, and it's in Hayes. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I don't know any more than that about what the next steps are, but I'll find out from that. The contract has to be signed by the mayor, so hopefully he'll be coming back soon, or we'll figure something out. But
And then once we have them signed, then we can proceed with bonds.
I think we could probably start on pursuing the bonds anyway.
Okay.
Now, that's something that Mike is going to be working with you on, I believe. I feel like we can go ahead with that because the letter did state that the funds are contingent upon, hold on just a second. I think I've got the letter here. Maybe I don't. Oh, yes. The CDBG funds you are being awarded are contingent upon our receipt of funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Just go forward.
So, yeah, I mean, I will find out more at the workshop, but yes. So, that's
So
all I
you'll know
have.
more by the next meeting.
Yes. Yes.
So we'll start, I did contact the engineer, Miller and Associates, in reference to us being funded, just because I wanted them to know. And then, I guess the immediate step will be the tree removal. Now that we know we're funded, I know that was talked about earlier about the urgency of getting those things out of the way. So that'll be the first, I guess, hands-on thing as far as getting it started.
And we'll work at bids on this? Okay.
Yeah, because it'll be, we'll have to have insurance and everything, working on city property.
Are you going to put do you want me to put something in the paper for these bids, or?
No, I'm
Okay.
going to do that through Miller and Associates to make sure we get the proper dirt work, curb and gutter removal as needed. No, there's going to be a spec on that. So
Gotcha.
I want to utilize them to make sure it's done right for the contract time.
Yay.
Anything else on tree project, or?
Do you want me to leave it on there? Do you want me to leave it on the agenda, or take it off and just let it be in your report?
You know, we're going to have reports, you from CDBG and me from the engineering. It's up to you. I'll be bringing up wherever I need to at a given time. So I think we pretty much are going to be aware it's the monetarily the most important thing we got to do.
It's up to you guys.
Doesn't matter to me.
You
Is it
guys-
under here?
You guys will cover it.
Yeah.
Okay, then you get it.
Yeah, that's coal on the other side. Yeah. Well, yeah, but that goes all the way over to the next fence line. Remember, Tom knows the whole thing.
I'm not worried about that.
That's what I'm getting at. It doesn't matter. We can
This
just,
side of the
my point being, we can put the fence anywhere you want to, but you want to put it just on the east side of the road, down to a point, a gate at the road, and then circle back around with that entrance thing. Or, you know, back to that point.
I'll bring that up when we get to comments.
Mayor, motion to approve the building permits. Moved by Cale. Second by Derek. All in favor? Superintendent report.
Miller and Associates, of course, we have them looking at the theater. I haven't heard anything back on that. I was hoping to hear something today, but I don't have anything yet. On streets, this is aside from the street project we're talking about, but going forward, we have to protect the investment we already have, the ones that are good. So like College Street, we either need to chip seal it or fog seal it. And that's going to cause some level of controversy just for somebody not understanding it. But once you put something new down, if you don't protect it, it goes back to what we're dealing with all over town. I'm going to have them look at it and see if we can get away with fog sealing it this year because that's far cheaper. It does seal it. It might buy us some, some time before we chip seal it, which is actually putting a layer of oil and rock on it. The fog sealing is just an oil. On Whittier Street, the one we have the county mill up, that one will have to be chip sealed, so you're already going to be doing some chip sealing. So it's going to be a cost comparative. I'll come back to you with it. Fog sealing will buy you 2 years, chip sealing 10 to 12, which we'll have to do following. So the fog's kind of a buying time, but it also, is better to do that before chip sealing. So I'll come back with some price scenarios on that. But I want you to be aware of that because obviously we're going to go right back to a street we just redid, but that's the only correct way to do that. And under these circumstances with raising money and bonds and all that stuff, it'll probably draw a lot more attention to doing that. But it's what we have to do, otherwise we don't have anything left.
Are you talking the whole thing or just?
College Street, all of what we put new down on, yes.
From high school north?
From Spencer north, yes.
Okay.
I was asked to take a look at the Prairie Land since we've done the new contract, and of course they've rebated part back in October. It does appear that thing is working the way it's supposed to. We should see some significant savings on that thing. Again, I don't want to get too concerned with additional revenue because we're still hunting for a way to get some work done on the electrical system. But it does appear that the Prairie Land contract is exactly as it was stated, and we are seeing some savings on that. If you didn't notice, we had a water break on it was some Friday last week or week before last on a Friday, and had to tear up that little street up there pretty bad. Anyway, that we was able to isolate it and get it fixed. The Scout Hut, I was looking through some records. The last time that thing was stained was in 2016. We was hoping to do that every 2 years with 2 coats, at least not do it more than 3 years apart, so it's due. We usually have Melvin Confer do that. 1 coat's $500, 2 of them's $1,000. I already told him to get it on the schedule. It's one of those things, if you don't get that on that wood, there goes your investment. So I guess we should, because it's over the $500 spend limit, which we should talk about someday too, have it approved by the council to do so.
Motion to approve with 2 votes.
Yes.
Second.
Moved by Cale, second by Larry. All those in favor?
And the last comment I have is for the paper more as much as it is the council. Recycle center, we always have these things where things get slack and we start getting more trash and it causes more work, but styrofoam is becoming really a mess up there. It comes in with the cardboard and it stays, and we can't recycle styrofoam, so if you could please put something in about, we'll take your cardboard, but we can't take the styrofoam. It's very bulky and hard to deal with, and it's trash, not recyclable. So, and that's all I have.
Any questions for JR or comments?
What if we put a giant box with a bag in it? Would that work?
There's something with a can of worms there.
Just for those that don't throw it away.
St. Francis Recycling and Trash Center.
Yeah. That's what it gets to be, is the problem.
Just for styrofoam, those giant bags thing, just to.
Go get everything.
They're always going to be up there, I'm sure, styrofoam.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have to put surveillance up there at some point, because we go through these times when we get just trash, and it just creates a lot of time. We spend a lot of effort trying to do the recycling properly, and we get a lot of trash besides the styrofoam. The styrofoam just happens to be the bulkiest issue. So,
Okay, never mind.
what's that?
Never mind.
There's not any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the superintendent report?
No.
Moved by Cale, second by David. All in favor? Attorney report.
I met with Mike, JR, Lila, and Cody on Friday morning to discuss matters that are ongoing and what I'll be taking over and what Mike will be continuing to do. He is going to be going through files. Anything that has been done within the last 5 years will be transferred to my office. Anything that is older than 5 years, which he is still in possession of, will be brought to the city office, which I understand will be gone through, and at the determination of Lila and Cody, will be properly filed or destroyed if it's a duplicate copy. I handed out my card with my contact information last meeting. I have been given a email. It is attorney@cityofstfrancis.net.
Yes.
Attorney@cityofstfrancis.net. I thought this would be a good idea. That way, all correspondence for the city is in one place, as opposed to me having to try and filter it through my law firm email. In addition to this, I don't foresee myself going anywhere anytime in the near future, but if something were to happen, to me, all the correspondence to the city attorney would be in that email, and the password could be reset and turned over to the new city attorney. And so it provides for them to be able to more efficiently understand the correspondence, the communications that have gone on. And so I would ask that if you're going to email me with city matters, that you would now email me at attorney@cityofstfrancis.net. I would like to request 10 minutes of executive session for a prospective conflict of interest discussion that I cannot make public, that I cannot state publicly, but it's regarding a prospective conflict of interest that's pretty significant. So I would request 10 minutes. Other than that, I have nothing further.
And that was Cody Workman that she was talking about, not
Yes,
Cody.
sorry. Cody Workman. My apologies.
I'm telling you, we need to come up with
Mm-hmm.
code names for them.
Just call him Sheriff Beeson.
Like Kat said, that get to his head. You don't want to do that. Is that it? Is there a motion to approve the attorney report? So moved by Dara.
Second.
And Markeo. All in favor?
Do I need a motion for executive session?
They,
Usually wait till.
Okay.
yeah, we're going to do that at the, well, it's up to you guys.
Oh, I didn't know if you make the motion to do it at the end now or if you move it at the end. I didn't know. Sorry.
We usually
Yeah,
do them
make
at
the
the
motion.
end.
We wait till the end of the meeting to do executive sessions normally unless it's pressing, and then we'll make the
Are
motion.
you on a real bad time schedule?
No, I can wait. I just didn't know if the motion needed to be made at my report time or if you'd make the motion at the end. I was just inquiring. This is the first time I've had to ask for executive sessions. I'm still figuring it out.
We usually wait till the end and
Okay.
make the motion then.
Thank you.
I like what people.
I have some things tonight. Last meeting we talked about an inventory list. The only inventory that I have for the police department is the computer equipment. And I handed it out to everybody just for your information of what I am aware of that's there, what we've already taken for the municipal court. The stuff in yellow down below is what I feel like City Hall could use, potentially use, security cameras. Cody had talked about a file server over there. I think it may have something to do with the security cameras, but I'm not 100% sure. I feel like it because it's located near the security cameras. There's a DVR there that's, I'm sure, capturing the cameras. I'd like to keep all that security equipment for us.
You currently use part of it already.
Well, we did, but we've lost access to the cameras. I don't know what has happened. I need to talk to Matt Wilson. I need to talk to Matt Wilson about all this equipment that's highlighted in yellow. The sonic wall, that is firewall security that Daryl got for over there. There's no reason we can't use it over here for us and our computers. We've already paid for 3 years of the licensing for it, so we should probably be using it. And I would just have to get Matt Wilson to help get that installed and take care of that. all the stuff in white there is nothing that I see a need for us. I'm assuming that all of that is stuff that Cody wants, but I don't know that. I'll just say it's not anything that I can use, so.
And going forward, I don't think accounting for anything is going to be an issue at all. What we did find was that the original contract was left overly vague, but the intent's pretty obvious of it, so
Yeah.
we'll account for what needs accounted for.
He's taking, when he takes things out, he is inventorying things, writing them down as things have gone out. So I don't have any concerns about that at all. So anyway, that's all that is. I thought I would share it. I was hoping he'd be here tonight, but I emailed this to him as well, so he has it. So the other thing that was brought up is about back in 2012, the city and the county and all of the emergency management went together and purchased the emergency radio communication equipment, all 800 megahertz radios that everybody has. It was very costly. It was around $200,000, and at the time the Department of Transportation had a payment plan that they took advantage of, spread the payments out over 12 years. It's through the county, but the city and other entities, Bird City, the fire department, all of the emergency management, sheriff's department, there's a lot of different entities that shared in the cost. And initially, for the first 2 years, Terry Miller was the clerk over there, and we did get invoiced for our share, and we paid our share. And then there was some turnover, as everybody's probably aware over there, and also here in the clerk's office, with Mary passing away and then Glory taking on. And with all of that said, it fell through the cracks, and we never paid, after the first 2 years, the city never paid for our share of what those radios were. We weren't invoiced by the county. They never sent us an invoice. We weren't aware. I certainly wasn't aware that we were supposed to be paying this. So now we've discovered this. I've been in contact with Scott Hauptman. We've figured it out. We've figured out, if you look at that other page there, you can see what our share should have been. We paid in 2012 and 2013, and we have not paid the county anything since then. So for 14 through 19, the total that we owe the county is $21,984.90. This comes out of equipment reserve. When it was initially set up, that's where the payments were coming out of. Part of it was police department, and part of it is the fire department. So moving forward, there's still 4 more years left on payments for this loan. But for the remaining years, we won't. I would not think that we would be paying the police department portion of it. We should just pay the fire department's portion, which is what you see down at the bottom with the invoice numbers for the remaining years.
For the next 3 years, it'll just be the 1025.
Yes, if that's what you feel is the appropriate thing to do.
That's the agreement, though, right?
Yes. This
if
wasn't
we
talked
touch it.
about, with the merger with the sheriff's department. This wasn't talked about because nobody knew. But it seems like if we don't have the radios are going to the sheriff's department, that they should then pick up the payments for those radios.
Oh, so you didn't talk to Scott about that?
He doesn't have an opinion
That's
on
fine.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we have to pay the 21 now,
Yes.
total?
That is what we owe.
Okay, I didn't know
Yes.
if we...
Yeah, and I don't really see any problem with that
Yeah, got
because it'll come out of our equipment reserve.
Okay.
We have enough in there. It's what we owe.
Right.
So I would need a motion to go ahead and pay that. And so no, to answer your question with Scott, I haven't talked to him about the particulars, although I did send this to Scott Hauptman. So
The amount due currently is cut and dry.
Yes.
Going forward, may be subject to...
yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yes.
motion to approve making the payment to the county of $41,984.90. Moved by David,
Second.
second by Cale, all in favor?
Okay. And I do have a copy of the agreement if anybody is interested in seeing it. We managed to get that from Ryan Murray. Okay, hold on a
Do
second.
you have that in email form? Could you email it?
What's that?
Do you have it just in paper? Or do you
I have it in
email
email that I can
Could you
send it.
that to me, please?
Okay. I've got to find my notes. I have an RV park license application here for Clay Zimbelman for the new RV park that he put in last year over on 205 West 2nd. It's just, so it's a renewal of his RV park license, and he has paid his fee. Just need a motion to approve that.
So,
Moved by Larry, second by Cale, all in favor?
Okay, I've already talked about the CDBG workshop. Again, if anybody wants to go to that with me, just let me know and we can go together. The Municipal Court Clerk Conference is coming up in Wichita, March 4th through the 6th. I'd like permission to send Cody to that. The first day of that is totally training for new municipal court clerks, so it's something that she definitely needs. So I just need permission to send her, if that's okay. Thanks.
Second by Cale.
Okay. And then my clerk conference is coming up also in March. It's March 11th through the 13th in Manhattan. And
now you're starting to push it a little.
yeah, I know. But I'd like to go. I'm not going to spend the night when I go to Hayes. I'm going to get up early and just drive there. So I'll save us some money there. I'd like permission to go to that conference in Manhattan.
You need a motion?
Mostly just permission, I think. Just okay for me to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll check my calendar, I'm sure. We can move that.
It's during the week. I won't miss any council meetings. Also, this is just to let you know, the first payment that we made to the county for the law enforcement agreement was $6,916.67. I need to make a record in the minutes that I let you know that we made an out-of-cycle payment for that, but I had to do that because it was due on the 15th, and we failed to get it through our cycle on the Monday, the 13th. It was not in those bills, so we did pay it. So normally I like to ask ahead of time, but I had to get that paid. We are going to need to amend the 2020 budget, as I've mentioned numerous times. I'd like to get that done fairly soon. I don't think it's going to be too complicated. I'd like to get it done soon so that our budget reports are accurate, because if we don't, our reports they're not very useful for me. Mostly what it's going to be is establishing that new fund. We'll amend the general fund so that the money that comes in from our sales tax, we will be doing a budgeted transfer from the general fund to this new fund at the end of the year or as needed to make the bond payments. But that way we have transparency. Everything that's coming in with the sales tax will be going into this special improvement fund. Very transparent where that money is coming from and going. It was pointed out to me that we could technically use the capital improvement fund for the same result, but I felt like for tracking purposes it would be a lot better to be very transparent and have a special fund for this. And we've talked about that, and it was in our sales tax initiative. So we'll have to make that happen. We're also going to have to take into account the savings that we now will realize with our electrical. We'll have to amend that fund so that we will have additional funds that can be transferred out from the utility fund to wherever you guys want it to go, capital improvement or equipment reserve. That'll be a significant amount, but a pretty easy amendment to make to the utility fund. And the police department, I'm not sure if I mentioned that. We'll have to amend the general fund for the police department. most of the expenses will go away. The only thing that we'll see there will be the contract with the sheriff's office, and then some other things like utilities for that part of the building, those kinds of things that we currently pay out of that department. We're going to keep the police department as a department so that we can see what we're spending for anything related to that. Attorney fees, if there happens to be any of those that come up, anything that's associated with that we'll still pay out of the police department. So these are they're pretty minor changes. I'll get with Angela. I'll get with Angela, I'll get with JR, we'll get it figured out and hopefully get this done by March.
And if we sell a vehicle or something, then we just put it back towards that,
Um,
or that department?
so
Or does that go there?
it
I mean, I
could,
don't know.
yeah. We can't put anything into equipment reserve directly. It has to go in there by a transfer. So you can't just sell something and put that money in equipment reserve. So yeah, it would come back into the general fund. If you're talking about like that vehicle out there, it would go into the general fund, yes. And the only other thing I have is my anniversary is coming up in February, and I have some vacation time that I haven't been able to take. I've got 34 hours that I would like to carry over. I promise I'm going to take it this year because my daughter's getting married.
Is that between Hayes and Manhattan?
No, that's on the city. I think last year I carried over 32, so I've gotten behind on my usage of my vacation, but I think I took almost my full amount this year, but I still have some.
So when's the wedding?
It's in June, and I plan to take off the whole week because it's up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, so I
Oh,
plan
wow.
to take the whole week before and a couple of days after, and it's June 6th, so. Yeah. Anyway, is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any questions, comments? Do I have a motion to approve the equipment report?
So moved.
Moved by Larry, second by Cale, all in favor? Council comments. We'll start down here. Larry?
The only thing that I've got, well, number one, I forgot to bring the quote or whatever on the vehicle that, what was it, the Expedition?
Mm-hmm.
It's either laying on my counter at home or my wife buried
You
it.
had one task.
I had one, and I blew it. And Amanda even gave me 8 minutes to take care of it. I will have that at the next meeting. Second thing is, Amanda and JR have both made comments about some ATVs being out at the Riverwalk area. And something we had kind of overlooked was, we talked about this fence on the south end of the Riverwalk at Keller Pond to basically have a T entrance, for lack of a better word, on the south side. But what we've overlooked is there's a road that goes straight north, and we're getting people with ATVs that are coming past that where the fence should be, and then coming in and going riding on the trails and stuff. So I need to get with Tom and see how he thinks he wants to address that. I don't think we're having any issues on the other side, are we?
Yeah, because they ride through on that side.
They're riding across the river?
Somebody is, there's dirt bikes going
Oh,
across.
dirt bikes, I never thought about dirt bikes.
So, yeah, I mean, we may have to do some access restriction on the other side too, or signs. I mean, I hate to be putting signs up there, it might be the only thing we can do.
Speed bump.
Because I think by ordinance, I think we actually might have it by ordinance that it's foot traffic only. If we don't, we could do that, ordinance enforced, put it up.
Amanda had mentioned something about signs, but I'm not sure in this instance whether or not signs will accomplish what we're needing to do. But the other side of it is I have a hard time justifying the city taking on that expense to put a fence in. I have a real hard time with that.
The foundation would be
The
approved.
foundation, I don't know if Tom has discussed that with the foundation as far as putting the wood fence in at the access point, but we've never really discussed even a barbed wire fence or something just going north to hit the next fence, right? That's what we're after? I don't,
I don't think so. You just want to enclose that little circle drive to the east. if you go on the east side of the drive, it goes down into it, down to a corner post where the trail is, and then just curves back over to the walk entrance, remember the walk entrance?
So you're not talking about going north, you're talking about coming...
Just enclose that little area, but we need a service gate there, so protecting the tree.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's something I need to bounce off of Tom. See what his thoughts are. That's all I got.
We had talked about the CCDC board assignment, and you were going to get with someone. Have you found anything out on that?
I have not. I sent an email to Helen Dobbs to ask for the bylaws for the CCDC, explained the situation to her, and she hasn't responded back with that yet, but we'll find out.
Let me write this a little better. It basically says their horses and motorized vehicles are just restricted to the improved road areas.
Mm.
We need to change that
Yeah.
wording. That'll be on you.
To say motorized vehicles on trails.
Yeah.
They don't include bicycles.
It shouldn't be hard. We'll just have no motorized vehicles or, we'll just clean it up. For what the intent was, because we didn't intend to ever have even bicycles on another thing, which...
Was that really an issue, bicycles?
Quite a few people do. The only issue with that is riding around people walking.
But don't you still want a some sort of sign up
As far as not...
there? No motorized.
No, well,
Yeah,
motorized.
Yes, but we need the ordinance to back it up. So what we need to be able to
right,
do is
okay.
quote the ordinance. The ordinance needs to say, no motorized vehicles not stay on the road. Whoops.
Got it.
What is the ordinance number?
It's 12308.
All right, do I hear a motion to go into executive session for Lauren? Go for it,
Wish
Larry.
me luck. I move we go into executive session for 10 minutes, coming out at 8:34. For the purpose of a legal issue with prospective conflict of issues, interest. With everybody in the room that's involved with the city council.
Everybody present?
You
Do you
want
want
us
all of
included?
this?
We can be excluded if you want to talk to just the council.
Yeah, I think that's probably best. To
Okay.
minimize the, I've spoken...
Just city council members.
Please.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Larry made the
Your
motion.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you guys, sorry.
Hold on just a second.
Look after
I
your
know what
dog.
you're saying. Yeah, I know. If you just left it the way it is, left the fence up and just filled it in, but you're going to get the fence down, which is built into the concrete according to what JR's telling me. And that's an idea, though. We'll throw that on the
I just
agenda
think-
as well.
I think it might be a good idea.
Yeah?
I've talked to several other dog owners, as a dog owner myself.
Sure.
I've talked to several dog owners also who think it would be a good idea that the dogs would be able to run and play and get off leash
Yeah?
in an appropriate manner. There's plenty of off leash dogs.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a lot for sale over there by that property?
Yes. That's
Will
the
that
statute
affect
you-
anything that's been planned to do if someone buys that and builds a home there?
I would think.
Lot for sale.
Right next to the Norman Marles Church, we have that lot between the The scout
Not
hut
executive
furniture.
session, but I
That
think
wouldn't
dog
affect
park
anyone.
should be put in with it.
I would agree 100%. I always thought up at the roadside
City-
park, when my
city
boys
owns
were in
that whole
Boy
triangle.
Scouts, that one of them should have taken on that as a project and made a dog park up there.
Wasn't there talk about doing a dog park up there?
Yeah, there was. And I always thought that'd be a great location, not only for the community and for people here, but for people traveling through with their
Mhm.
At the
animals.
roadside?
Yeah.
On that, I kind of visualized it on that side that's along where the recycling center is,
Mhm.
because there's trees there, and so there would be shade, for the dog and.
What about Frisbee golf? Would you have to relocate it?
So,
No,
Are you which side are you talking
No.
about?
the west side.
I'm talking, the west side.
West side of the recycling center?
No,
No,
West
east-
side of the park.
West side of the
roadside.
park. East of the recycle center.
Just across from the giant
Oh, yeah,
drive-through
okay.
area.
There's the first picnic area the little one off to
Yeah.
the side on the right, when you first pull in, right in there.
Have to get the stickers probably.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't think it's too bad in that particular area.
It's buffalo grass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you're talking up top, not down by the highway.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, the backside roadside park.
That was down by the highway, next to the State Department was where we wanted to put the sand
Oh,
volleyball.
really?
We got voted down.
But I'd be all for a dog park.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was yesterday, Jerry was walking his dog, I was walking my dog, Anna Doffett was walking her dog. We were all,
Yeah.
going out to the cemetery, You gotta keep the distance.
We were
The
down,
dogs, be nice.
we were down at the river walking. There's somebody down there had two dogs that didn't have them on a leash, and we stopped, and he leashed his up really quick, and he walked off this way, and we walked around this way to keep them from.
I saw someone walking down Washington with a Ziploc bag in their hand following a dog, and I'm just like, I wouldn't have a dog trying to do that. I'm not doing it.
At least they're picking it up.
Yeah,
We
but-
have problems
Sure,
with
do that.
people that don't.
I'd rather
I'm
go
just
out
not
in the
down with
country.
that.
Still see that big white hairy dog
Oh, yeah.
every night triggers my cameras. 3 a.m. he's walking down the street. Do you know whose dog that is? Does anybody know?
That big Great Pyrenees?
Big
Yeah.
white shaggy
Isn't
looking
it
one.
Martin Hill? Isn't that the one that comes to town?
I think so.
Well, I thought,
Ford?
Ford, I thought he had a big one too.
He does.
He does, but I didn't know that his got off
Martin Hills would come all the way to town?
Yeah.
Mhm.
They say they travel all over.
Yeah.
and it's their-
They'll push so they're
Wow.
they're nomadic. They were
That's crazy.
they were bred to be.
It happens often, not every night, but
Yeah.
quite often. I see.
Well, Billy Dog Carpenter had one, but he moved, so.
Mhm.
Hmm.
They'll push their boundaries. They'll try and expand their area, and so they'll parole they'll patrol the perimeter and they'll go farther. I have a half Pyrenees, half lab. Sarah, my white fluffy one, is half Pyrenees, half lab. She, however, has the lab instinct and does not want to leave mommy's side.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I saw that Pyrenees out. Do you know where Tim and Terry Richard live?
No.
Way out.
Yeah.
Way
I
out.
saw it almost that far.
Huh.
Really?
Clear up by
Yeah.
the Nebraska
Yeah.
line. Clear
Wow.
up there, yeah.
Whoa.
Well, and Calicrates have two that have come to town before, too.
Oh.
So they travel,
Amazing.
yeah.
I didn't mean to. Sorry, take that off.
No,
I
you're
just
fine.
thought that was. I thought I'd throw that out there because
That's a good
I
idea.
want one.
No, I can take it now.
I had that
And
thought too.
realistically,
Same thought.
realistically, you put up a small fence or something up there, we would have to look at the boundaries on where he does have stuff laid out for the Frisbee golf, but, you just have to go up there and walk it, maybe get with Kerry sometime and talk to him about it, see if there'd be an actual option up there. Because that's what we ran into, is he didn't want to, with sand volleyball, that was his starting point of the course, and he didn't want to have to move it or do anything different, so.
I don't think, we've played the Frisbee golf, and I think back behind over where that little picnic area is, I don't think there's any of the
There's
little
nothing down
things.
right on the road area
I
there.
don't think so. It's been a while since I played.
Haven't played for it.
Well, and that'd be great because if anyone's playing frisbee, then the dogs just run back and forth
Oh, yeah.
trying to get at it and exercise the dog. No, I'm just kidding. But
Huh?
Who's motioning to adjourn?
Are we adjourned?
I'm putting my pen away, I'm waiting for, usually it's the first person to stand up, I'm like, nobody else is standing, so.
Larry.
Moved by Larry.
Kelso second.
Joe, you're not up yet, though.
Second by David.
I'm getting it done.
Oh, now I don't know what to put in my minutes. Was it Cale or was it David?
It's by stand-up, it was David.
David.
It was David, okay.
Is it still snowing, Mama?
Yes. Yes, it is.